My life has been filled with amazing experiences, some really good and, some bad. And this is the story of a failure experience that I totally brought on myself and how it turned out to be one of the best experiences of my life. It's a story that started with me hounding Don to go to Africa. For years, I hounded Don to go to Africa, specifically to see the gorillas in Uganda. These are the Dian Fossey gorillas. The movie Gorillas in the Mist was made about Dian Fossey and her gorillas. And I was interested in these gorillas because when I was a graduate student at Western Michigan University in speech pathology and audiology, in the early 70s, which is before when many of you were born, we studied primate languages. We listened to hours of tapes from the mountain gorillas and analyzed the language patterns of gorilla communication. Since I was in grad school, linguists have determined, because of course of our great tape listening, they've determined that gorillas have a regular and rule-governed language. They have specific names for each other that the whole tribe calls each gorilla by its sounds. They have specific sounds that they use for commands to move and scolding and checking in for safety and things. And I really wanted to hear it in person. Secondly, I was excited because the three countries of Uganda, Rwanda, and the Democratic Republic of the Congo had worked together to save a dangerously dwindling population of gorillas because of war in the areas, because of habitat encroachment, and because of poaching the gorillas for bushmeat in fancy restaurants in foreign countries. When the three countries agreed to intervene, there were fewer than 300 gorillas left in the mountain range. And so far, in the past 12 years, they've families are growing. And when we were there this past November, the population is nearly 1,000. So we're excited. I was excited about that. I wanted to support that. And they do their regeneration of the gorilla families by charging exorbitant fees to go up and see them. So in 2013, Don agreed to pay those exorbitant fees and take me to Uganda. So we made our plan. We bought our expensive permits to trek into the mountains to see some mountain gorillas. I bought some trekking boots, which I wore around our cottage to break in. And all summer, Don said things like, "Honey, don't you think you should maybe go do some hiking or something? This is a trek into the mountains." Well, we had a house full of grandkids and company. I said, "Oh, honey, I'm stronger than you think. I'll be fine. Just don't with the boots. Look at these boots are really comfortable." So October arrived, and we were off. We flew from Grand Rapids to Detroit, Detroit to Amsterdam, Amsterdam to Entebbe, Uganda, where we spent the night. In the morning, we got on a tiny little plane and flew through Uganda to land on a dirt airstrip. A driver picked us up and drove us across the worst roads I've ever been on in my life to a lovely hotel. How come I went there? Because we did not see Chase. I'm stuck here. I need to get back. How do I get back to my slideshow? That's not it. That is Don's. We did see them in Botswana, but we didn't see them in. Can you put the computer right here? Will it reach? Okay. Because I'm not very good with this clicker thing. It's going to be fine. Okay, there we go. Thank you. Okay. And so this was the aerial picture as we flew across Uganda. A driver picked us up. We drove through these terrible roads, and we just kept going up. The altitude was building, and I'm not great with altitude. It was 98 degrees with 95% humidity. I'm not good with humidity. Everything was slippery. I mean, I got out of the car and I started slipping. We're on flat ground. I'm thinking, I'm in deep trouble here. This looks like I might have made a mistake. I didn't sleep all night. I woke in the morning really nervous. We left our hotel and went to our base camp. And as we walked across the field to meet up with our guides, several people were watching us. What I know now is they were assessing our fitness level to determine whether or not we were going to go see the faraway gorillas, the halfway near gorillas, or the closer gorillas. Whether we were going to take the difficult trek, the medium trek, or the easy trek. See, there are 3 habituated families of gorillas on the mountain. Habituated means that they're used to the presence of humans. You don't feed them or touch them or hang out with them, but they're not threatened by having humans in their area. So scouts determined where each of the families spent the night, and the farthest family is the hardest trek. They watched me walk across the field and immediately put us in the group for the closest family. There was a gentleman from the UK who was 79 years old in our group. He took one look at me and said, "You're not going to make it. You're going to hold us up." At that point, I really got worried. Don said my knees were just shaking. And, to hold up a group, I was feeling so terrible. The guides assured us that I would see the gorillas. They were kind of ticked at the guy from the UK. They assured us we'd see the gorillas. If I couldn't do the hike, they would call the Uganda helicopter. They said the Uganda helicopter means they'll call some guys from the field and they'll help you up the mountain. So, okay, it made me shake a little bit less, but we started out. I met this is part of the mountain range that we're going to climb, and this is my guide, my porter. They gave me a porter to carry my camera and my lunch. He took my arm like this and gave me a walking stick. I don't walk well like this. So now I'm like this with a walking stick and this Uganda guy under my arm. And I kept saying, can I put my arm down? "Oh, no, missus," he would say. So we head out on this trail, narrow, tiny little switchback trail, slippery, narrow, tiny little switchback trail. And we head up the mountain. I was panicked. I was having trouble breathing, and I had to frequently stop and catch my breath. And every time I stopped, the British gentleman said, "You're holding us up." Don was so aggravated with this guy because he knew the guy was freaking me out. Finally, I said to the head guide, are we almost there? We'd been hiking for about a half an hour. He looked at me and said, "We're just heading into the hard part of the trail." I burst into tears and said, "Don, I want the helicopter." Don rolled his eyes and said, "Yeah, okay." The head guy got on his radio and he said, "They will be here in a moment." I said, "You just take a look at me here because I'm not like a small person. Are you sure you got enough?" And he looked at me and he went, Pretty soon, running up the mountain, 13 adorable Ugandan field workers came. Adorable people. With a cot. I was sobbing. I kept crying, and these little guys they had one on each corner, and they would lift their heads up over the cot and say, "It's okay, madam, it's okay. Don't cry." That's them taking me around a curve. Now, on each corner, there was a guy on each corner, and all of a sudden you might feel one corner start to just kind of shake, from muscle stress, and you hear, and pretty soon somebody else would come over, take that corner. I was a mess. I did put this picture in because those are my boots. That's what I saw. Laying on the cot, I was shaking so hard that the picture's fuzzy, but that's the way I went up the mountain. This is how bad I looked when they stopped for a break. I was devastated, and my husband was so frustrated with me. After about a half an hour on the cot, the guide stopped us and said the gorillas were coming. They macheted a path for us into the rainforest, and there they were. And we were close. It was just amazing. Look at those faces and the sounds. First of all, the silverback, well, I didn't put a picture of the silverback in, I should have done that, but he just sits there eating leaves and farting, and you can hear him. It's just amazing. And then every once in a while, he calls out a sound, and on that side of the clearing, a female will call back, and it's like he's saying, "Hey, are you okay over there, Jane?" And Jane responds, "Yeah, I'm fine." So he does that over and over, and some of them even acted like they were posing for us. Isn't that great? It's like, "Oh, do you like me like this?" But of course, my favorite is this one, which I showed the kids. The babies were, they were beyond adorable and very curious about us. The adults don't really care, but the babies, very curious. You're supposed to keep a 7-meter distance, but they don't know what 7 meters is. So sometimes they'll run right by your feet. I settled down when I saw the gorillas, and I went back on the path, and the guide said, "Get on the cot." And I said, "Oh, I can walk." He said, "No, you need to get on the cot." Don said, "She's going to walk." So we walked for about 20 minutes, and then we stopped for lunch. And my porter took out of the backpack my basket of food and handed it to me. And I looked down at my 13 Ugandan helicopters guy, and they didn't have a lunch. So I passed them my basket, and they cut my sandwich in 13 pieces. They cut my apple in 13 pieces. They divided up the chips, and they cut my cookie in 13 pieces. And so I thought, well, okay, that's good. My guys got to eat today. The guide then said to me, "Get on the cot, we're going down." I said, "No, I'm okay." Now, at this point in time, Don thinks perhaps they thought we weren't going to pay, because I'd only been on the cot for half an hour going up, and maybe we weren't going to pay them. But I said, "Well, I'm really okay to walk." And he said, "It's going to rain. Get on the cot. We got to make some time." So they threw me on this cot and ran down the mountain. It's a switchback. It was terrifying. We got down 20 minutes before the rest of the people. And there's my cot. There's my crew. So I didn't go on the trek the next day. But Don, we had these, expensive permits, and we wanted to make sure that somebody used them. And normally they don't let you transfer them, but our bartender was from Kenya. He had not seen the gorillas yet. And Don checked with the park, and they let him go. So Don took the guys, the bartender, and went on a trek, and he got put in the far gorilla group. So I was just going to stay on my beautiful porch and look at my view. You see the rail of my porch there? Except the staff at the hotel was just devastated that I had been so upset. They just couldn't stand that I was alone. They kept bringing me coffee and snacks, and they just wouldn't have it that I wanted to stay and look at this and read my book and heal my wounds. Finally, they said, "You have to go with Alexander. Alexander's here, and he's going to show you the town, and he's going to take you to a school." I thought, well, okay, I'll go to a school. This is Alexander showing me the tea leaves of the coffee plants in Bwindi. And then Alexander said to me, "I'm going to take you to the school to cheer you up." So we went to the school. You saw these pictures with the kids. I was heartbroken. I had been volunteering in my grandson's kindergarten classroom. You couldn't walk through the classroom without tripping over materials. And here sit these beautiful children on dirt floors, no electricity, no desks, hardly any books, maybe 5 books in the whole school, very little paper, a couple of pencils, and beautiful teachers and smiling children. And I couldn't even get my breath. Took a few pictures, and then they came outside and sang that song. We've been waiting a long, long time. Everybody's happy. It's going to be fine. I was a mess. We left. The kids were so delightful. We walked away from the school, and poor Alexander, I fell into his arms sobbing. He said, What? I thought that would make you happy. I said, there's no justice. This is not fair. These kids deserve to have an education. How's this country ever going to change them? Blah, blah. He said, I'm going to take you to see the Batwa community. That will cheer you up. Well, Alexander told me the Batwas, on the way to the Batwa community, the Batwas are the pygmies. They're the people that they displaced from the mountain because they used to hunt the gorillas. And so now I'm looking at the remaining 34 pygmies in the world. They displaced them and put them on 2 acres of land. They don't have anything to hunt. They don't have any materials to build their homes. And I am not cheered up. This is the chief in the front. He greets me, takes me to a chair like this, takes me to a chair, puts me on the chair, and his wife comes and washes my feet. I am a mess. They dance for me. They show me their homes. This is big enough for this little tiny woman to go in. This is me, like Gulliver and the kids. This is the adult population of this tribe and a few of the children. And this is the chief's wife here who made that basket, which I bought. Her head is the size of my right. Yeah, well, anyway. So I was just a mess. And Alexander said, I'll take you into the town and cheer you up. I said, I can't stand any more of this cheer. So, but we did go into town, and I saw these kids who had made their wooden scooters. They find pieces of wood and hook them out. I just went home feeling amazing. In the meantime, Don, and I went back and talked to Alexander for about 2 hours about all the social conditions there, about the school, about how we could help. It was really a good conversation. Alexander's become a good friend of our family. We actually helped him with some university costs, and he's just become a tour guide. And on this trip, he was our guide. He rented the car, and we were his first customers, which he has some room to improve. In the meantime, Don was up on the Far Trail. He hiked like 8 hours that day, up and back, just exhausting. But he was with some really great people. The guy in the middle is Abraham. He was our bartender. This couple is from England, and that couple is from Australia. And he came back to the hotel with these people ready to just party. And he walks into our room, and I'm just going, you're not going to believe my day. So we all went in the bar and had beer and talked about how we could make a difference in the world. And it was a really amazing experience born out of my failure. So we found a local craftsman to build some desks. That was our goal. Get the kids off the floor and build some desks. After we left, all this happened, and we did this all by email. We started getting desks delivered to the school. The kids were thrilled, just so excited. And this is a fuzzy one, but you can't see that the arms and the feet of that guy are totally red. They must have gone spray painted those desks and taken them right up to the school. But it was really a fun project, and we got very excited about it. This is St. Matthew's School. In the meantime, this man, our housekeeper at the hotel, who had become our friend, is emailing me back and forth. And he says, I want to build a school too. We need more schools in our community, and I'd like to build a school. His name is Moses Agaba. He was our housekeeper. And he's now writing me. I'm losing my place here. So we said yes, we would help him build a school, and construction began in a new spot. This is the beginning of the latrine that we had built, because Moses found out that he couldn't open a school if he didn't have a big latrine. So we built it, sketched on the side of that, they wrote, donated by Don and Cindy USA. So Don always says that kids go to the Don there, not the John. You can see that they label everything. I think it's good because they have a lot of tourists that come through and they think, I want my name on it. So they get more. Then we started hearing about Elizabeth, his fiance. Isn't she beautiful? And then we started having Elizabeth show up in all the pictures. So we knew things were pretty serious. About that time, I got an email from Moses that his grandmom, who had growed him up, had died, and would I be his mom? And I said, of course I would be your mom. He said, can you come to our wedding? And this was in 2014. And I said, well, we can't come to your wedding in 2014. And he said, well, then we'll wait. Then, oh, yeah, okay. Well, then he sent me a picture of his very serious varicose veins and said he could no longer work. He was building this school, but he was still working as a housekeeper at the hotel so he could pay the staff. And he said, I can't work anymore. I have these terrible varicose veins, and I can't get the surgery because it will cost too much money. And so we said, how much would that surgery cost? And he said, $425. And we said, we can do that. So next thing we knew, they didn't wait for everything because he had the surgery. And then this beautiful baby was born. Now, Moses had written to us and said, we want you to come up with a name for the baby. You saved my life. You've helped with the school. We want our baby to have some part of your family. So I had written to all of our kids, and we had put together this list of names of grandmas and aunts and middle names, and the kids had come up with some great ideas for names. And we sent them off to Moses. And he wrote back, and his response was, ha, 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 ha. She is born, she is named, she is beautiful. And her name is Cindy Anderson, first name, Elizabeth Agaba. Cindy Anderson, Elizabeth Agaba, my name. So I thought, oh, that's great. Then he said, would I be her godly mother? And I said, of course. And Don said, you've got a long ways to go to be a godly mother. So we started getting pictures of her. Is she not the most beautiful child? And at about this point in the school, Nicholas from Germany showed up. Now, these are the classrooms that they had built. They're just the wooden frames with the dirt floors. But Nicholas caught the fever of the school, and he sent enough money to build 4 classrooms. And, oh, there's our latrine. I wanted you to see that. That's our contribution. And this big area is the dining room. So you can see that the school just became a real campus. They asked us to come for the baptism of Cindy Anderson, Elizabeth Agaba, and the grand opening of the school. And Donna and I said, how can we refuse this? So in November, we got there on a Thursday. Moses and Elizabeth and Cindy Anderson came to see us, and it was tear-jerking to have her there, to hold her. She loved Don. She was a little afraid of me, probably because I went, oh. And so we got there on a Thursday, but Friday morning, Moses said, we're going to bring the children. We're going to bring the children, and we can walk to the school. So coming down this road, this is their main highway here, are 130 kids singing at the top of their lungs. And they come and greet us, and we walk back to the school together. And I want you to see this. Look at this. I'm just so excited. And everywhere we went from that point on, we each had a kid on every finger. So you'd be walking along with 10 kids, you know. So they all wanted to, we were celebrities. So we got there, and they had everything set up for us, and we got to tour the class. Oh, they give the kids porridge in the morning, and then they give them a good lunch. So not only do they go to school, but they get to eat. And we noticed other kids in the community who don't go to school have those little distended tummies and face some malnutrition. But look at these classrooms. These classrooms that Nicholas built, bright. They don't have electricity, so they do this all with light and paint and just some energy here, and that was pretty exciting. It was pretty exciting to see all these classrooms. We planted trees. I planted a lemon tree because they said when we come back we're going to have lemons from that tree, and Don planted an avocado tree. And we had a lot of fun. All the kids were together and we were singing. I was teaching them some songs and we were singing together. And of course, they're just so enthusiastic. And I laughed as hard as a person can laugh that day. And Don kept trying to say, I'm trying to get a good picture of you. And I said, honey, I need a hairdo and I need a better shirt. But I'm just with the kids. So they're just so beautiful and happy and loving. And so it was really fun. We had a great time. And then our neighbor, Ron Lukasik, sent soccer shirts for a bunch of the kids. And we took 50 soccer balls over because when we originally got there, we would see big fields of kids playing soccer with no ball. They'd make rags and tie it with tape and string and play soccer. So we took 50 soccer balls over. And the kids were really excited. And this is when Cindy Anderson, Elizabeth Agaba finally decided to come to me. You could see I got a little sweaty that day. And then the next day, Alexander took us to the national park to see the tree climbing lions. And that is his grandmother that raised him. Many of these young people have been raised by grandparents because of the HIV, AIDS virus that killed so many people in the community. His grandmother went with us. We invited her, not thinking of a thing. She had never been in a car, and she'd never been out of her village in her 61 years. So this was quite a day for her. She kept grabbing my hand in the back seat at every curve, like, oh, my God. So that was fun. The next morning, Sunday morning, these are the church bells calling everybody to church. So we went. This was the baptism. And this is one of the other godfathers, Alexander, me, and the family. And they had her in this beautiful gown with a Santa Claus jacket on. We weren't quite sure what that meant, but we had the baptism. The bishop was there to baptize her. And she cried. The only time we heard her cry when we were there, she cried and she reached for me. So I got to comfort her after her wet-headed baptism. So that made me so happy. But there were 900 people at the church. It was a hoot. It lasted for 5 hours. And do you see, this kid, nobody knew where he came from. He'd get off and some other kid would come up. And you can tell there weren't any other white people there. So we probably were pretty noticeable. And it was just amazing. 5 offerings. And people would come forth with a goat or a chicken, or they just kept taking offerings. Donna and I kept saying, what are we supposed to do? And finally, the last offering, this is Don. This is our hotel manager, Jotham, who's also Moses' boss. And he came, and he was just cracking up with Don through the whole thing. Because we spent the whole church service going, and people would bring something forward, and then they'd dance and praise and jump up and down. And at one point in time, I said to Elizabeth, what's going on? She goes, we are praying. Oh, okay. So it was great. So then Moses talked about the baptism. These people were all celebrating Cindy Anderson. And then I had to talk, and I didn't know I was going to talk. And then Don had to talk, and he didn't know he was going to talk. And so then I had to hold the offering basket, and that was a riot. It was so fun. And after the service, everyone gathered on the lawn, just like we all do at our baptisms. And this is Alexander's mother, or grandmother, who had been with us to go to the park. And this is the extended family of Elizabeth and Moses. This woman in the blue dress next to me was one of the other godmothers, and she was a hoot, really fun. And then we went to the school and did the ribbon cutting, the grand opening of the school. The 900 people from the church went to the school for this big party. and we paraded in. It was quite ceremonial. And they put us in this seat of honor to watch the 3 hours of speeches, which we didn't understand a word of. Every once in a while, Elizabeth would say, "You stand up now and bow." We didn't know what they were saying. They say, "Cindy Anderson." No, she's talking about the baby this time. So this is the kids, just like at a wedding or something, just dancing, waiting for the. Isn't that a riot? These are the kids of Bwindi Plus. That's the name of this school. Don just got a kick out of the way the kids dance. We have lots of footage of dancing. They had it catered. The cooking all took place up above. They had 5 buffet lines. They did 5 cows and 4 goats and 3 chickens, and I don't know. They just slaughtered a lot of things for this party. And then there was cake, which I got to feed Cindy Anderson some cake. And then this was a funny picture because this is the other godmother, and she's bringing forth for the basket a live chicken. And Don's going, "You got to be kidding me." And I'm just laughing. I said to her, "No one's ever given me a chicken." She said, "You come here, I'll give you a chicken." So the party ended. We were done. And the next morning we went to St. Matthew's School, which was the original school. And they have not had a really easy time because their school manager that we had worked with turned out to be a really crooked guy, and he kind of put the school in a hole. And what he did for them was that he did not give them our contact number. So they thought we were mad at them because we didn't contact them, and they couldn't contact us. So anyway, the desks are there. You can see they've been used and loved. With the dirt floors, they get pretty dirty. And look at the difference in the school. The kids are off the floor. We really felt that the school really has done pretty well in spite of all their troubles. And then they sang to us. I'm so sorry I did it again, Chase. How do I get back? I thought I was going to do volume. Oh, shoot. I have to be rescued every time, and I'm behind. So let me just say that the next morning we got up, went to St. Matthew's School, and then we had to say goodbye to our little family. Thanks, Chase. What they're saying in this song is, "Hello, Donnie. You're very welcome here. We've been waiting a long, long time. We know everything's going to be fine. So you are highly welcome here. You're highly welcome. Highly welcome to this great function. We see everybody's very, very happy. We know everything will be just fine." It's just amazing. We went to say goodbye to Elizabeth and Cindy Anderson, and this is our final shot. It was so hard to leave, but it was a wonderful trip. That's my story.